Hello, everybody. I wanted to come on here and do a live video because it's been a while since I've done anything solo like this. I've been doing tons of interviews and just focusing on other people asking me questions and becoming aware of what comes up as a result of that, which is great. I love doing that. But I felt like doing a solo live video because I've been getting so much feedback lately about the pain and suffering, and most especially the narrative that is playing out in the United States, where I am, around the world, where everybody else is, to differing but varying degrees. But it's essentially the same thing. Here, it's about the elections. Around the whole world, it's about COVID and the different levels of it and the lockdowns and this and that. Essentially, it's the same thing playing out everywhere. But it's interesting because there's so many protests of people who are aware that what is happening is crazy. We're not being told the truth, and it doesn't take much intelligence, okay? I'm sorry to just blatantly, and if you don't like this, you can shut it off, because this is my opinion, and it's also the opinion of many other people, but we as individuals have lost our ability to think critically. And especially in the United States, people are watching the TV and listening to everything the media says and taking that as gospel, believing that to be more true and more real than the natural world that we live in and the natural forces of energy that are inside of our own being. And at what point do you start questioning this global and national narrative that everybody has become so addicted to from a critical thought perspective, from a way that is like, okay, this is just insane? Because I'm getting tired of hearing this story. And I know tons of other people are getting tired of hearing this story. And here's the reality of believing and buying into stories, which, regardless if it's happening on the TV or the news or we hear that, we do that as individuals to ourselves. Something happens to us, we become traumatized, and the impact of that trauma on our body creates stress hormones that become so prevalent in our perception of self that we keep focusing on the story that's related to whatever happened that caused those feelings to come up, and we keep focusing on it. And so the event came and went, whatever it was for us. It could be different. For me, I was bullied as a kid. Other people go through really severe things. But even though the event happens, it passes on, time changes, we keep revisiting these old stories that caused us to suffer. And we also keep creating, we take that story and we project it out into the world. We project it on others. We unknowingly, because we're so addicted to the trauma that the initial experience created, or that the series of initial experiences created, that we keep taking that, we project it out into the world, and the feedback we get is that of our own personal story and our pain and suffering and trauma projected out into the world, coming back to us. And so we feel stuck. We feel like we're in this endless cycle, a prison of our own pain, of our own perception. And at what point do we wake up and question this narrative that we keep telling ourselves and be like, wow, okay, wow, I'm actually unconsciously focusing on something that caused me a lot of pain at one point, but now that it's over, why do I keep revisiting this or keep projecting that emotional input that I'm getting from my body by focusing out into the world and then receiving the same feedback over and over and over? So we do this as individuals, and we also do it collectively as a species. And so what we're witnessing in the world right now is so clearly this collective thing of like believing the media, believing a narrative, whatever a narrative may be, whatever side of the fence it might be, believing that to be more important to your own internal state of being than your ability to start focusing on your internal state of being, on this innate intelligence that is causing all of us to exist. And so I'm thinking, like, all these protests are happening all around the world where people are like, this is crazy. We're done buying into what the governments are telling us, what the media, and they're protesting all around the world. Here in this country, there really isn't as many protests, and they're certainly not being, the ones that are happening aren't being publicized on the media, which should tell people something in and of itself, that right there. So I was thinking, like, what a better way to protest than to just shut off the TV and go outside and breathe some air. Like that's protesting, because a lot of people are like, oh, okay, all these crazy things are happening. What can I do? You can do a lot. Shutting the TV, not buying into this narrative is going to, and focusing on your breath in nature is going to cause you to start feeling a lot better about yourself. Now you're kicking the addiction to your own trauma. You're kicking the addiction to the narrative that so many people have invested so much of their attention into. And you're instead choosing to focus on something that, with your critical thought and your sense of logic, is more important than anything else, because nature makes up more of reality than all the governments of the world. Right? Obvious. Like, there is more going on under your feet on this planet, around this planet, than all the governments and all the societies and all the people and everything that's happening in that world. But most of us are focused on the human element, the societal element, the focusing on reality from the outside in instead of the inside out element, therefore giving this beautiful power of attention away to all these things that, when we focus on it, we feel the fear, the scare, the story, all this. So we take our beautiful, priceless attention, we focus on all these external things. It gives us feedback of fear. We then internalize that feedback, and then we just stay in this endless loop of continuously vomiting it up, throwing it up, projecting it onto anybody that will listen, because we're in this negative loop of self-doubting, of fear of ourselves, of our own stories, and we're also doing it collectively. So at what point do we break the cycle and realize that we're stuck in a negative cycle, a negative pattern, a conditioned pattern that we have allowed to happen because we were unconscious of our own internal mechanisms that enable this process to compete for our attention, to take us out of a state of calm, of relaxation, of trust, of knowing that everything is perfect as it is, or at least choosing to focus on this innate natural rhythm that's in your body. Because here's the thing, even though we create these negative patterns, if you will, or cycles that we get stuck in and keep thinking about and keep projecting onto others, and then they keep projecting it back onto us, and we watch the news and then it projects all this fear onto us and we embody it. And like, the same way that we create these miniature, if you will, negative thought and feeling cycles and patterns, there are natural cycles and rhythms and patterns that are in our body, that are in the planet, that are the solar system, that the entire world is actually made up of. And the beautiful thing is, the innate intelligence of our body is actually made up of that. That's what we actually are. But we're not really focused on that. We're focused on our own perception of the things that went wrong in our life or the things that are wrong with the world, and we have created an addiction to perceiving all these things, believing them to be more valid than our own ability to self-illuminate and to empower ourselves in a way that is going to eventually lead us out of the pain and suffering and trauma and narrative and stories and blah, blah, blah. All these things, essentially perceiving the world from the outside in. We're going to reverse the trend because we're going to wake up and we're going to realize how powerful we are as individuals. And we're going to choose to break those cycles and reverse the world by choosing to get into a calm, coherent, relaxed state, prioritize that, make that state of being more important than the old stories and patterns and narratives that we keep repeating and telling ourselves and feeling and projecting, and more important than this global collective narrative that is mostly being transmitted via the news and then by most of the people around us because they keep buying into it and believing it. So we're choosing to break that cycle by focusing on this innate intelligence that is in us. Because let's get logical here. Let's look at this from a common sense perspective. Even though all this stuff around us in the world that's happening seems so real, there's something way more real happening inside of our body that's way more important than all of these external things. And we, by not realizing that there's this innate intelligence in our body, and that if we take what little bit of intelligence we have, sorry not to be rude here, and I'm speaking about myself too, because I had to do this. I realized that there is this innate intelligence in my body. And that when I take what little bit of intelligence I have, that at that point in the past, I was focused on all the problems that I was having and that the world was having. And I chose to instead focus on this innate intelligence in my body and committed to it and smiled and was happy about it. And even when I didn't feel happy about it, I knew that there was a missing link between my perception of self and the world around me and whatever this force was inside of me that's causing my heart to beat, causing my lungs to breathe. I knew there was a missing link in my conscious perception of self and reality, and I prioritized the missing connections or the missing links or the discovery of that. I prioritized the discovery of that above and beyond my addiction to all the stories and negativity that I was feeling in my own life as a result of my own trials and tribulations, and that the world had bought into. So, real leaders bring people together. Okay, that's what true leaders do, and they do it by getting people to change from the inside out, and they do it selflessly. They don't do it because they're looking for an opportunity or they're looking to gain something. No, it's taking all of your desires that aren't really yours to begin with and focusing on your own selflessness, moving beyond the parts of you that are addicted to all these patterns and connecting to this energy that you are and allowing that selfless aspect of your own self-awareness to become predominant over the selfish aspects of your ego that have been conditioned into you, that you have allowed to be conditioned into you because you didn't realize how powerful you are. And the world never taught us how powerful we were. And so we took all this beautiful energy that comes in the form of attention and we focused it on what was wrong with ourselves and what was wrong with the world. And now is the time for us to be the true leaders of our own lives by breaking that cycle, by becoming strong enough, confident enough, loving enough with our own being, and then coming together with others who also are thinking and feeling and realizing things in a similar way and supporting each other in this journey back to self-realization, back to knowing that our self-identification as humans is a secondary expression of what we really are, and making what we really are a priority over who we think we are. And if we make this focus on what we are and we habituate it and we prioritize it and we do it over and over, even if it takes forever, eventually, as long as we do it with sincerity, we start getting feedback in our own body and in the world around us that our commitment to knowing this innate intelligence that's in our body, that's causing our ego to exist in the first place, is aware that we're becoming aware of it. And bit by bit, it starts to fill in the blanks, fill in the missing pieces, allow the parts of us that feel stuck and lost and disconnected from ourselves to start feeling found, connected, aware, expanded instead of contracted. And then when we become the leaders of our own lives, we go out, we connect to others who feel similarly, and we support one another in this so that we can all grow. Because this isn't a dog-eat-dog world. Societies like that, money-based economies have become like that. A lot of things have become like that, but nature isn't like that. Nature is actually a whole bunch of intricate living systems cooperating, working together so that the entirety of it can grow and thrive. And that is what more in alignment with what our true nature is. But we have to be the ones as individuals to choose to focus on that, prioritize it, make it more important than our own past problems and the narrative that everybody's buying into and believing. And when we do that, and we do it with conviction, we do it in love, with love for ourselves, we start feeling compassion and empathy and love and care for others. Essentially, we start to feel connected to what it is that's allowing us to exist in the first place. And this invisible force that is causing our heart to beat, that's causing our lungs to breathe, that's causing all these biochemical, bioenergetic reactions to take place within our own body faster than the speed of light, we start to embody the virtues of it, which are expanded, they're open, they're augmented, and they want us to live, or it wants us to live in alignment with it and bring that energy into this world to create greater connection in our own lives and with each other as these human beings that we temporarily are. So my suggestion for everybody today is, if you want to do something about the world and you want to protest, you might not want to protest, but maybe the best way that people could protest is to shut off the TV and go outside in nature, take off your mask and breathe, okay? Breathe. And when you find out and you realize that there's this energy that is causing our lungs to breathe, regardless if we're conscious or not, okay? When we go to sleep at night, we're still breathing. There's something that's causing us to breathe, whether we're conscious of it or not. So when we consciously breathe, we slow our breath down, we start connecting or harmonizing ourselves to whatever it is that is causing us to breathe. And as long as we keep doing that, we eventually make all these new connections in our brain and body that the way that feels is a lot better than this negative spiraling thing that we've been addicted to feeling. So the more feedback we get by doing this, the more committed we become to sustaining these internal states of being and then going out in the world and sharing this. So breathe in harmony with the breath, the universal forces that are breathing you. Do it consciously, and eventually you become conscious of what this force is that is allowing us all to have this momentary gift of life. And that is more valuable, more important. It is priceless compared to the pursuit of anything that this world has conditioned us to believe is more valuable than it. This is what we were before we took this form. This is what we will be when this form is over. And it most certainly is what we are right now. But as long as we're focused on our problems of the past and the fear-based narrative that everybody is being subjected to, especially in this country, then we begin to move beyond it. And we start connecting to what is actually real, which is nature, our own inner nature. So protest by turning off the TV and going out in nature and harmonizing yourself with it, harmonizing your body with it. Make that more important than all the problems in the world. And you'll start getting feedback that it is more important. And once you start getting a little bit of feedback that it actually is more important than all the things you were giving importance to, you start creating new habits of perception that bring you closer and more aligned with what is actual, what is more valuable than anything else in the world. So thank you. Have a beautiful 11/22, which is the date today. A lot of people say it's a major portal. Life is a major portal. Every moment we breathe is a major portal. But there are other external alignments that do support all this. But the real support, the real alignment comes with every breath we take, comes with every beat of our heart. And that is something that we as individuals have to choose for ourselves, because nobody is going to choose to do that for us. Okay. Please comment below if you have any questions, anything at all. Let me know. Have a beautiful day.